Well, it's 2025 now. It's been so long since 2020. Since the start of COVID, I started driving. I solidified my passion for and life on the internet, as well as my distaste for anything off the internet. I started getting good at video games. I watched so much YouTube and Twitch content, it's not even funny. I started a YouTube channel. I started working and studying in the technology field, disregarding almost everything I had learned in the last 5 years of the scam we have for an education system, and fell out of all my friendships from my pre-COVID life, except for about one. I think that's all the big things anyway. So in this video, I just want to reflect on my life and go over everything that's happened and where I am now, including my new car, which I have mentioned before. I just feel like this past year has been a turning point in my life where I've been looking to the future a lot and putting a lot more effort into slowly moving towards my ideal life. And it's also been the year when I've been the most depressed and lonely due to other circumstances. Speaking of that, remember me talking about that mysterious lack of motivation I had during one of my NoFap videos? Yeah, that had nothing to do with NoFap. That was just me getting more and more depressed in general as time went on. Now, let's start from the beginning. I just want to give a little background to the circumstances and events from my life that have shaped kind of the way I am now before we get into stuff that's happened this year. Now, if this doesn't interest you, yeah, click off the video. This is not for you. This is just me, talking about myself, my life. Go watch a gaming video if that's what you're here for, but I'm gonna do this anyway. So I kind of find it interesting that I grew up being a well-rounded, adjusted, and educated kid, but still ended up idealizing a solitary life spent on technology. My parents raised me very well, I'd say, in my opinion, from a young age. I was homeschooled and allowed to learn as fast and as much as I wanted, and I was involved in plenty of extracurricular activities. As a kid, I did karate, took drum lessons, piano lessons. I did baseball and other sports when I was a little older, but I never really had any lasting friends. Of course, I would talk to people wherever I was, and I was pretty extroverted at that point, and also definitely awkward and annoying getting into middle school ages, due to the massive amount of time I spent at home and not at public school interacting with people. I didn't get to really grow up from being a kid, when you get to the ages of 11, 12, 13, 14, like other kids do. So I was still pretty much like a weird, awkward kid as a young teenager. I also didn't really have a group of easily accessible friends that I always spent time with, unless I went to parent-organized events like birthday parties and hangouts or whatever. I never really spoke with anyone outside of where I met them. This was probably due to me not ever going to a school close to my neighborhood and being within reaching distance of anyone I could choose to hang out with on my own, like kids classically do with friends that they meet at school. This same situation continued into my teenage years, but also due to my parents exerting control over any activities or friend meetups that I wanted to go to, which made it very hard to have friends outside of high school, for example, or outside of anything else I did, the few times that I did try. And yeah, I was homeschooled for most of my life, but I did go to a very small public high school, which did a pretty good job of socializing me, but also turned me introverted. I never had the freedom to simply go hang out with other people, even though they did that all the time with each other, and because of that, all the friendships I had, save for one or two, were just not to the level of everyone else. I spoke to a fair amount of people regularly, but I was always just there, and I didn't exist to anybody outside of school, it seemed, and they didn't really exist outside of school to me either. I wouldn't really spend much time thinking about people that I interacted with at all. They were just there, and then I came home and, they're just out of sight, out of mind. That kind of disconnect became more apparent as I went through high school. I rarely even texted anybody at all as well. It's also interesting because I was generally likable. Nobody had ever really disliked me to my knowledge. Really, I'm sure people thought I was awkward, cringe, but not downright unlikable. And I was also well known by most people due to me always taking on leadership roles, helping out with activities and events, and my willingness to converse with anyone. This disconnect and a defining moment at school at the end of my freshman year, which I won't go into, is what made me start my 2-year descent into becoming more introverted and figuring out what to think about friends, other people, and crushes, and how I wanted to act. So I was pretty much like a kid, like a 9, like a 10-year-old, all the way up to the age of 14 at the end of freshman year. And then from that point until I was 16 at the start of COVID, that period of time, I kind of grew all the way up into being an older teen just in the span of 2 years because of the amount of socialization that I got that I never had before. So by the start of COVID, I was a lot more introverted and kind of like an older, like a 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old mentally. And my birthday's in the summer, so the summer after COVID, I would turn 17. And of course, though that period was like probably the largest period of maturity growth I've had ever, every year since then, I change and refine a little more, and I can look back and cringe at things I've done just a few years ago. But for the most part, that time was the big shift from me being a kid to being a teen. And since then, it's just been a slow transition to being an adult, which I finally mostly feel like now at age 21. So because of all this, my attitude towards friends since I've been a teenager has always been that it's nice to have the occasional conversation with people, but I never really care much about them or think about them at all outside those moments, and our relationship never really evolves because they don't put effort in, and I would much rather not put effort in either because I'd rather be alone in my room playing video games or doing other projects, or because my parents need me to do anything else instead. And in the past few years, I've become even more intensely introverted, where I want nothing more than to live completely alone and never leave my house and not talk to almost anyone ever in person or online. But also, as I interact with more people, my communication and confidence with personal interactions has only gotten stronger, so I can exist and thrive in a social world for the most part, even though I dislike most interactions with people. So the result of all this is I don't want or need to talk to people or have friends, and therefore I don't usually interact regularly with anyone in person or online by choice, except for one friend that I've had for 8 years now, who I speak to for about an hour a week on Discord and see in person a couple times a year. So that's kind of been my social life for my whole life. So now talking about the internet, which has been my favorite place to be for the last decade. I was never super exposed to the internet as a whole from a young age, which a lot of people are, and it leads to cringe and internet addiction and brain rot, of course, and lower attention spans. I was able to avoid all that. Now, I did get a Samsung tablet when I was 8 or 9 or something, but all I did was play those old classic mobile games everyone played, and whatever other shitty games I could find. I never, ever got into social media or interacting with people online at all, which I think was a huge bullet dodge. I got my first computer when I was 9 or 10, and I used it to write homeschool reports and essays and watch Lego animations and other stuff on YouTube. Now, I also discovered porn at this age, but that never became a huge problem. I've talked about that in other videos, so go find other videos where I've talked about that, I guess. The first real game I played was Portal 2, and then Minecraft after that. I still remember the first day I played Minecraft. It was January 15th, 2015, and I was 11. So Minecraft, mobile games, and some browser games I found in the following years, including Deep.io and Warbrokers.io were the only games I played, and random Minecraft-themed videos like Slamacow, Element Animations, Stampy Longnose, and Unspeakable Gaming were the only content that I watched. I would also search and save memes from Google Images occasionally, as one does when one is a kid. In 2017, I found Shell Shockers, and that became practically my only video game for years, as well as Vine compilations on YouTube, which got me into video memes. In 2018, I finally got Discord and Reddit. On Discord, I joined Shell League, which I ended up moderating the Discord for during season 6 or something, and started saving more memes than ever from r/dank memes. I also watched lots of meme and Vine compilations on YouTube. In 2019, I started watching anime and hentai and finally started subscribing to actual YouTubers for once and staying loyal to specific YouTubers instead of watching what's recommended or random videos. I actually kept up with people's content. I started watching PewDiePie in late 2019 during the Floor Gang era, and in early 2020, I started watching the Dream Team, which got me back into playing Minecraft, and the boys' individual VR channels, and the rest is history. I started watching the Dream Team Twitch channels from the very beginning, as well as the boys group channel. I started my own channel. I started watching many more creators. I watched a handful of animes, and I would go to a choice Discord server or two for more offensive memes. For a couple years, I would spend most of my time when I was on the computer watching every Twitch VOD from the same 5 streamers while studying or playing Deep Rock Galactic or other games. Okay, let's be honest, it was mostly Deep Rock. I picked up a few more games here and there, and genuinely had a great time in COVID, away from people for the most part, and doing the things that I love to do the most. Play video games, consume content, and make content, even though there were always things that forced me away from it. I still never got into any other social media and haven't retained any internet friends or interactions that weren't pretty shallow and for a short period of time. I was hardly even active on Discord or Reddit, considering how long I've been on there. It's just been thousands of hours of YouTube and Twitch content. And yet, despite all those hours on those 2 platforms, I've never really had a problem with the internet. There are people that are addicted to the internet. There are people that hate social media and spend their time arguing or being cringe and doom scrolling and brain rotted. I've stayed away from all of that. When I'm out in public, I never really use my phone because I'm bored. Even if I'm waiting around for something, when I am doing something that I enjoy that takes me away from my computer and my video games and my content, which happens occasionally, I find it super easy to forget it all and live in that moment. Of course, there have been many more things and obligations that have constantly forced me away from what I like to do, and in those moments, all I care about is getting back to watching content or doing work on the computer. And it's these things like helping out with projects, or my job, or studying IT, or other never-ending responsibilities that have made it a struggle to find time to edit YouTube videos, especially in the past 2 years. And that has definitely made me feel like a failure, that I'm missing out on being consistent and the higher level of success and growth that comes with it, because content creation is really the only thing I can imagine myself doing in the following years that I would actually enjoy doing, and that could possibly make a living as well. There have been ups and downs in productivity, but I'm getting better at it now that I've settled into my new job and have been fighting to build a routine that works for me and everything I want to work towards. So I'll just spend as much time as I can on YouTube for the moment, whenever I'm not working or doing chores, while I wait for a life with more freedom and more time to pursue it fully. And even though it's not anywhere close to being a career, I'm grateful for the success I've had so far with YouTube. I'm grateful that I've passed 300 subscribers now, that I can post a video playing a game I love and it gets hundreds of views, that I can post a silly little clickbait short trend and get 2,000 views, that a poorly made clickbait irrelevant old video I left up is still collecting views. By the way, it has 21,000 views and got me 162 of my subscribers, which is literally half of my entire channel. Also, my idea of starting to make YouTube shorts with every video is working because most of my new viewers are now coming from shorts, so I've been able to cast a wider net. And I know that shorts don't translate to a lot of engagement, but at least that's a lot more eyes on my channel and has to be at least a couple subscribers for those hundreds and hundreds of eyes that I wouldn't get otherwise if I wasn't doing this. So I think for the most part, that decision was working out pretty nicely. And speaking of things that force me away from what I like to do, I hate working. I had a job moving boxes for Amazon in late 2021 for 3 months, a computer repair job in early 2023 for 3 months, and this one for 6 months now, which is also in the technology IT field. I hate every time I have to wake up and go to work. I hate the monotonous schedule, feeling like going home every minute, the lack of time for almost anything during the week, and kind of the weekend as well, because that's when I have to clean. And my parents certainly don't make it easier by interfering with any semblance of a personal schedule and responsibilities I try to have outside of work. It has certainly been a big contributor to me feeling depressed this year. I genuinely hate it, and I wouldn't wish a full-time job on anyone. Of course, I think the jobs I've had have been objectively good jobs, albeit just above minimum wage, which is about half the salary I need to move out. But I've been lucky because I haven't worked in customer service or fast food or retail or restaurants or any other much shittier job. Partially by choice and partially because I was actually able to find better jobs. My work now is better than ever because I get to be alone in a room for the most part, working with technology and listening to music or the official podcast, which, by the way, just this year, I've binged like the entire official podcast and I'm almost done. I'm like about 50 episodes away from being caught up. So, of course, I still have, Criminally Stupid, Red Thread, and Real Boys to catch up on, but I'll get there. Not to mention, in this job, I can move up into much higher paying positions or use the experience for a position at another business. It would be an actually great opportunity and a great start to a wonderful career if I didn't hate what I do the more I do it. Actually, the only reason I haven't quit yet is the quarter life crisis car that I bought myself 2 months into working there. And now it's time for what maybe some of you have been waiting for. I bought a manual 2015 BMW 435i with all-wheel drive. It has the original front license plate from when it was purchased in Germany, which I'm not showing, and a previous owner put a Dynon intake and exhaust on it, as well as a spoiler and a few fake carbon pieces on the inside. It comes with 300 horsepower stock, but I figure it may have been tuned up to around 320. And listen to this exhaust. After a minor electrical fix, it has set me back about $23,000, but it was definitely worth it. It's fast, it corners well, it feels amazing, it sounds amazing, it looks amazing, it's a manual. It is actually my number one favorite generation of BMW, so it was really lucky I was able to find a manual version that was worth buying. When I was 16, my parents bought a 2010 Honda Fit that I've drove for 5 years and sold just after I bought the BMW, so it was a huge upgrade. It may seem like an irresponsible decision because I don't have that much savings from before I bought it, and I'm making basically minimum wage. I don't necessarily recommend anyone else do this. However, I'm living with my parents, and they're on my loan for a better interest rate, and I'm on their insurance, so I'm able to afford it, and I'm actually going to pay it off in about a year as well. Not to mention, of course, I have to stay at my job to keep the car and be financially stable, so I'm locked in now. I can't just become unemployed anymore, even if I want to, which is, a good thing. It also kind of sucks. I'm planning on replacing these wheels with some black ones from somewhere, I don't know, to replace these trashed wheels that the previous owner somehow fucked up. I also need to replace the parking brake line clip that broke and is letting one of the lines rattle against the drive shaft occasionally under acceleration, and replace the plastic panels under the car, which are also absolutely destroyed for some reason. I also might consider replacing the fake carbon and loose plastic trim on the inside with real carbon fiber parts one day. I'm gonna give updates every now and then on what I'm doing with the car, and occasionally include dash cam footage for discussions and other videos if I'm taking a longer drive, so I'm not doxing myself. Now, I mentioned that this year has been the most lonely, depressing year as well. And I'm gonna explain a bit why, and why the situation this year has been a little different than in previous years. There are two people that I've cared immensely for ever since I met them when I was 14. They didn't know each other, I just knew them separately. There are other people I care about, but in part because of those two, I don't get emotionally invested or empathic towards anyone really anymore since then, except for them. It's like all of it has been reserved specifically for those that I've been closest to. I was really good friends with both of them in their own times. Probably the best friends I've ever had. Now, they never felt the same way I did, but I dealt with it because we did have some sort of connection that was more than just simply friends or acquaintances, and I could feel it often or every now and then when I spent time with them. It was still just enough for me to want to spend time with them whenever I could, because it was better than never having that interaction, even if I was always sad that it could never be more. And after a couple years of peace and solitude in COVID, at least from this, where I wasn't talking to either of them at all, I got two harsh realizations that the relationships are fading away. It's been the worst feeling ever. Just from basic interactions, I could immediately feel the connection of a close friendship had vanished. A few weeks ago, I made a very bad mistake and met up with one of them after not seeing them for years. Like the fool I am, I initiated the contact thinking something would remain of what it was, but it was like completely dead and made me feel like shit, which I kind of predicted leading up to it. Directly after the meeting ended, I then proceeded to Mexico to have fun with this guy and his Camaro, and who I assume was his girlfriend. Shout out to this random because he made my day a whole lot better. No one's ever tried to race me before, and on any other day I wouldn't have, but that interaction was low-key better than being confronted with a friendship that I didn't want to believe had died. I may never see you again, but you're a real one. 07s. Anyway, I've seen the other one a couple times this year, which has both been amazing since the connection has been alive, and also has contributed to stronger depression and loneliness when I'm not with them. But a couple months ago, the connection did suddenly vanish, which really fucked me up. However, it is probably temporary, and I'm hoping that it is not also dead, so I can hang on to the last connection I have for at least a little while longer. Of course, none of this is their fault. They've done nothing but be nice to me. I don't blame them for anything that's only going on inside my head. What's also unfortunate about that whole situation is that I fell for good, motivated, smart people when I was a teenager, so now they are at least 5 years ahead of me in their lives. They were free to leave and have relationships and pursue what made them happy for all these years since we stopped talking. My life hasn't moved much at all since I started my channel after high school. All I've done is study, work, and buy a car. That's pretty much it. Even if I thought it was worth it to deal with the complexities of having a relationship, I would have to wait until I was making enough money to move out before I could start thinking about getting one. That's probably going to take 4 or 5 years minimum, and I'd also have to find someone between going to work and going home. Not to mention, if I did, I would be giving up a lot of content creation time to spend with them. So the whole thing is super unrealistic. But amid all this, I got a job that looks like it can lead me to my future after working occasionally during COVID. I've been slowly getting more consistent with working out. I've been cutting commitments and habits to make more time for YouTube and slowly becoming a more competent adult. I even quit eating sugar and watching porn just because I can. I still have my dreams for my ideal future that keep me grinding, and I have my car to keep me from quitting my job. So if the people you love don't love you back, if the connection you had with them is no longer there, if the only true relationships you had are fading and becoming distant, if they are moving forward from when you knew each other and are experiencing life without you and you are depressed that you couldn't and can't share that time with them, if you being even just the close friends that you used to be would be enough, but you can't even have that anymore, if your interactions turn more and more indifferent until you are simply someone they know, if all you have now are memories of better times and fantasies of what could have been or never will, just forget about them and live life for yourself, I guess. Look forward, think about what you want your life to be, regardless of anyone else, and strive for that no matter what. Make time to do what you love, work out, be healthy, indulge every now and then, and over time, it will get better. At least that's what I've been telling myself. At least that's what I've been trying to do. It has to work eventually, right?